I would say that if you cannot reduce, reuse, repair, remanufacture, repurpose, reprocess, then you should reconsider and reject.
Hello and welcome to the season 2 of Understanding the Future. I am your host Punit Gandhi, and Climate Center for Cities is excited to bring to you a podcast about the future of work in the field of climate change, urban development, sustainability, and innovation. We will talk to experts working on ground as well as in the top management of government and non-governmental organizations to better understand how their field looks like in future. This will help us in preparing to enable climate actions as well as gauge the type of skill sets and jobs that would be required in future to solve complex challenges. If you are listening to it for the first time, do tune into season 1. Hello, and welcome to the season 2 of Understanding the Future podcast. I am your host Punit Gandhi, and today we have with us Mr. Hemant Chaudhary. He is the founder and executive director of Circular Economy Alliance Australia. He will help us better understand the topic of circular economy. Hello, Mr. Hemant. Welcome to Understanding the Future podcast.
Hello, Puneet. How are you? Good to see you again.
Uh, Thank you, Mr. Hemant. I'm good. So let's start with the first basic question of what is circular economy and what do we understand that in terms of urban areas? What are we looking at?
Yeah, look, we need to kind of demystify circular economy. The term circular economy has gained a lot of currency in the last 5, 6 years. So you see a lot of people using this term. So we need to really understand what is circular economy. And I'll perhaps put a bit of a context to it.
Sure.
Circular economy is not a new thing if you really understand the concepts and the principles that sit behind circular economy.
Yeah.
In fact, 50 years ago, my grandparents practiced circular economy. Your great
Yeah.
grandparents or parents practiced circular economy without being taught.
Yeah.
It was not something that they had to do some as a they didn't have to think about it. It was something which was a natural part of leading your life. And it was primarily because the entire lifestyle that people had, they had very limited choices. It was not a very strong consumer society. Only in the last 50 years, in the world as a whole, we have seen an exponential rise in the way we are consuming resources. And to give an
Yeah.
idea, in 2000 and in the 70s, the world as a whole consumed or extracted close to 26 billion tons of resources every year. And you look at now 2020, we are cross 100 billion tons per annum. And with the current growth of population and the rate of consumption of resources, if you put them together, there are estimates that we would be consuming to the extent of 180 to 200 billion tons of resources every year in another 20 years. Now, clearly, this is not sustainable. Clearly, this is not something that you know we can manage, not just from a environment impact perspective, but also from a resource availability perspective.
Yeah.
You know, we would be at some stage running out of these resources, and the lifestyle that we have created is based on these resources to be made available for infinity.
Yeah.
So there is a fundamental issue here: is the issue of resource availability, and then also the issue of the environmental damage. And climate change is just one aspect of it, but other damage because of the way we are actually processing and disposing the resources.
Yeah.
So to go back to now circular economy. So what is circular economy? There are various ways you can actually explain it. One is it is, you could call it, doing more with less. That is circular economy.
Yeah.
Going back a long time, stitch in time saves nine, we used to say. That is circular economy.
Yeah.
I always in my talks say that There is no such thing as waste. Waste is basically a resource at a wrong place.
Yeah.
So the whole so circular economy has to be understood from a philosophical point of view, that it is more about how we create a lifestyle or how we live a lifestyle where we are maximizing the resources, we are keeping the resources in circularity.
Yeah.
And so you are basically reducing the burden on virgin resources which are finite.
Hmm.
So so it's not something that is very complex if you really understand what it is. Now, how to deliver that objective of keeping your resources in circularity, there are hundreds of different ways you can do it. And there are, they can all work together or in parallel, but point is this, that at the end of the day, in my view, are there two objectives. One is keeping your resources in circularity, so you are, and they are both material resources as well as biological resources.
Yeah.
And the second thing is minimize the environmental impact as a result of that.
Yeah.
And when you start to look at the combined benefits of it, it provides phenomenal opportunities, not in terms of then economic growth, because you are doing more with less, and also the fact that now you got a better environment, and the, you know, the damage associated with, or the cost associated with the mismanagement of our environment, with whether it is water, air, soil, you know,
Yeah.
how that cost is mitigated, and suddenly you have a economic growth going with it. So it's a model, and it's a different model from a linear economy where you are actually just, you know, it's a take, make, dispose model. Here
Yeah.
you are actually keeping your resources in circularity. So I think once we understand that, then everything that you do, so, you know, I again, another thing we used to use in a common parlor was, I would say that if you cannot reduce, reuse, repair, remanufacture, repurpose, you know, reprocess, then you should reconsider and reject basically any approach. So anything you do, then you can design products for longer life. You can design products for recycling and repurposing. You can then look at changing from using the energy source from renewable to non-renewable, sorry, from
Yeah.
non-renewable to renewable,
Right.
the way around. So then every intervention that you make, you know, is circular economy. So if I decide that, okay, I'm going to actually, rather than having excess lighting in my house, I'm just going to use light when I need it. I'm going to turn the fan off when I don't need it. I'm not going to keep the tap running. These are all things at an individual level that I'm doing to basically achieve circular economy
True.
at an individual level. And then you can do that at a corporate level, at a system level, at a, you know, but again, coming back to circular economy, first of all, you have to understand the thought behind it. Now, when I said it was practice, this is exactly what was happening going back 50 years, where everything was built to last, nothing was ever wasted. In fact, I recollect that I remember growing up in going to my villages, you know, my grandparents' place, and I don't recollect that there was anything, such thing as a waste bucket. You know, hardly anything was thrown out, hardly
Yeah.
anything. You know, I mean, in a group of, in a family, joint family of 20 people, what the waste that was produced by a group of like a family of 20 is, in a year, would actually be less than what a, a nuclear family of 3 or 4 people can produce in a week.
Yeah.
And this is the drastic change that the humanity has seen in the last 50 years. And we are now, because then it has become a major issue for us. You know, the statistics, and you can perhaps, you would have seen it, per capita waste generation has gone up by 2 to 3,000% in most of the cities in the
Yeah.
world.
Do remember reading it somewhere. I might be a bit incorrect, but somewhere close to half a kg to kg of waste we generate every day per person.
Correct.
And that's a huge amount when we are looking at a linear ecosystem. So can we break it down, that what all kind of waste are we generating that really needs to be made circular,
Hmm.
and how then we will come to how do we make it as well.
Yeah. We in Adelaide is a good example here, where we currently, as a city, we divert nearly 85% of waste from landfill. So
Yeah.
basically what it means is that as a
This is for
city,
Adelaide, you are saying, right, where you live?
correct, in South
Yeah.
Australia, which is one of the higher one of the most high efficiencies you can achieve. And that is done because everything gets construction and demolition waste get recycled. We don't, there is a ban to take it to landfill. Electronic waste is all recycled. Plastic, yes. And again, you have to work on systems to make that happen, and I had to create right kind of commercial instruments to make it happen. Plastics, nothing goes to landfill. In fact, yesterday was the day before yesterday, we have banned now single use plastic. So there is no
Right.
single-use plastic in the state. We banned plastic bags in 2009, and
Yeah.
now from yesterday, no single. So the plastic straws, cutlery, you won't find it in the market. It's totally banned. And
Wow.
obviously, you have to create an environment where there are alternatives provided for it,
Yeah.
and that's what the work has to happen. But point I'm making is this, that um, plastic, organic waste, glass, aluminum cans, newspaper, cardboard, construction and demolition waste,
Yeah.
commercial and industrial waste is all recycled in South Australia, in Adelaide.
Wow.
So, and when I say all, I'm not trying to say everything, but 85% is the current diversion. And
Okay. Yeah.
hopefully, we should be reaching even 90% because we are working pretty aggressively,
Yeah.
even on the food waste.
Yeah.
So that's something we are working very aggressively on. So point I'm trying to make is there is this, that everything technically can be repurposed or recycled
Yeah.
at a household level. So what is that should go to a landfill? Hardly anything.
True.
So if you want to talk about circular economy, you need to close the loop basically. And
Yeah.
India perhaps, and let me take a step back. By doing this, it is not costing us, is actually adding value. So that's another thing that we need to understand, is that when you look at a Indian economy, for example, and you look at the way it is set up, it costs billions and billions of dollars to the municipal corporations and the government to collect and dispose waste.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, unfortunately, because of the legacy, a lot of that waste disposal is not, is basically, they are not even landfills. They are not even engineered landfills. They are actually open dumps,
Yeah.
causing a lot of air. Now imagine if so there is a cost, embedded cost of resource, and also the cost of pollution,
Yeah.
which and also there are three costs, technically the three costs that the Indian economy is currently bearing. One is the cost of collection and the transport and disposal. The second cost is the cost of that the opportunity cost loss, because you are technically, what you're sending to landfill has a value, right?
Hmm.
And you're not capturing that value. That's the second cost. And the third cost is the environmental cost. So it is not a sustainable model. On the
Yeah.
other hand, by doing what we are doing in a circular economy model, the state makes billions of dollars in revenue.
True.
And when you talk about waste, we are not just talking about, by the way, material waste or solid waste. We should also talk about wastewater,
Yeah.
stormwater. These are all resources, right? So stormwater recycling, wastewater recycling adds billions of dollars to the state economy, because of you know that water
Yeah.
is currently used for irrigation and market gardeners and for growing vegetables and fruits and everything else. Anything, when you start to look at, it's a resource that currently is going to landfill. I've read some reports. In a year, for example, the world sends close to $120 billion worth of plastic to the oceans
Wow.
because of disposal. So the value of that plastic going to the ocean is close to 120 billion US dollars.
Yeah.
That's money gone, literally gone down the drain, isn't it?
True.
And same thing could be said to other things, like food waste is another example. As
Yeah.
currently, more than $1 trillion worth of food waste gets wasted. Textile waste, they say that 2 out of 3 garments are thrown within a year of purchasing them, and the cost is close to 400 billion US dollars per year of the garments just thrown into the bin, into the landfill. Electronic waste, close to 60 to 70 billion dollars of the electronic waste currently goes to landfill.
Wow.
If at all they are doing something with it, it is pretty unsafe and unhygienic way of reprocessing it. In when you see people, so there's a crying need for understanding that what the waste and the wastage
Yeah.
that we see because of not having circular economy is, from all accounts, costing the world close to 4.5 trillion US dollars a year.
Yeah.
On the other hand, this is a crisis. There's an environmental crisis. There's a resource availability crisis. You should be looking at turning this crisis into an opportunity.
True.
Because everybody has and you would have seen those reports, and they're out in the public domain, that Indian GDP could go up by 30%, up to 30% by
Yeah.
circular economy, because you are doing more with less. A book was published nearly 25 years ago or 30 years ago called Factor 4. And
Okay.
what that book claimed, and through number of examples from every field, every sector, that for the quality of life that we enjoy, we should be able to have the same quality of life, if not better, at one fourth our resource intensity.
Wow.
So imagine this as a nation, say you are using X amount of electricity, X amount of whatever, you should be
Yeah.
having the same quality of life for one fourth of that quantity.
Yeah.
And
No.
this can be done with just thinking smart, thinking in a preventative way, thinking in a holistic and comprehensive way. And again, then understanding that to reverse this wastage, you will have to put in certain regulatory measures, policy measures, educational measures, and most importantly, commercial measures like polluter pays principle,
Yeah.
which starts to put a value on this thing. Only when you start putting value, it will encourage recycling and all those things. We, for example, in Adelaide,
Yeah.
started in 1992-93 with a $5 a ton. For every ton of waste going to landfill, we charge $5. It
Okay.
was a bold move 30 years ago, and the government, the community was not ready for it, but they were not happy with it. They said, oh, why should we pay extra?
Yeah.
But we said that we are not going to use this $5 a ton. This $5 a ton that we are going to use is not going to be just going to the government as a revenue. It's going to be used for encouraging technology providers to come into to recycling technology providers to give them incentives to come into the market. It's going to encourage waste minimization, and it's going to start a process
True.
of focusing on waste, because if it is no there is no price on cost to dispose it, then it is high, there's no incentive to recycle, to minimize it.
Yeah.
Now from $5 a ton we sit at $140 a ton in 30 years.
Wow.
And that's what the councils will have to pay to take the waste to a landfill.
Yeah.
What it has done is it has allowed then all these various recycling and reuse technology providers to come into the market, because they would actually go to the councils and say, or to the government and say, look, instead of spending $140 a ton and taking it to a landfill, we will take it from you, or you bring it to us for $100 a ton or $80 a ton. So you save a fair bit of money. We will take it from you. We get money for taking it from you, but we'll add value to it by making a product out of
Yeah.
it, and then we'll sell it in the market as a recycled product, and that will give us enough margin to be a sustainable, viable business.
True.
So that is the way you encourage, right? So now this has created a huge industry of recycling and technology providers. It has obviously, as we discussed, 85% of waste gets recycled and
Yeah.
repurposed. Obviously, it has all those environmental benefits, but it has created an economic model which is very sustainable.
Absolutely.
So I would like to really put this point, and I cannot emphasize this point
Yeah.
strongly enough, is that we have to really look at this as an opportunity. And for that to realize this opportunity, we'll have to provide a strong um, regulatory sort of a
Yeah.
framework, but at the same time, not just regulation, a strong education, and then a commercial framework. So, polluter pays principle is sacrosanct
Yeah.
in allowing this transition to circular economy, because it's, when you talk about ecosystem, and India has no dearth of entrepreneurs. India has no dearth of very smart, creative people, but this whole intellectual capital that sits in India needs to have a commercial capital backing it, and that commercial capital will only be realized when there is a pricing mechanism put into the whole equation.
Yeah.
And I hope that India does it. They look at this as an opportunity, because it could unlock wonderful economic spin-off. So, the all these various ideas, technology providers, startups, people
Yeah,
who are doing startups, they will have that financial certainty
true.
to make a viable business out of it.
No, I absolutely agree that this administratively as well, this requires a major shift in how we are functioning things, and that is especially for everything that has already been done and the way we are already living. So that is where polluter pays come in as a very handy tool as well to make sure that okay, we waste as less a product as we can, but this also gives us an opportunity to design everything new in a way that is circular, that it can be because everything eventually starts from the design, and I think that is where one of the major things about circular economy comes into picture. How do we design a product which is circular? It is not about not functionality, but it is about can we dismantle the product again into basics so that it can be recycled easily instead of having to and I guess how can we encourage more of such things so that while generation things are being processed administratively, the newer generation of things can be done in a better format.
I think designing for circularity is a great concept, and I wholeheartedly endorse it. But there is a catch there, and the catch is this, that it has to be backed up with systems. When I say
Right.
systems, I would share a experience that I had having a conversation with someone who is extremely senior with
Yeah.
one of the groups from Unilever and Colgate Palmolive, this kind of. So one of
Yeah.
these two major multinationals, and this person happens to be very senior. And when we were discussing designing for circularity, they said that they are actually making their packaging by 2025 100% recyclable. Like a lot of the packaging, not everything, but a lot of the packaging they want to,
Yeah.
and they had spent a lot of money, millions of dollars in some cases, on research and development to make this packaging
Yeah.
recyclable. But the problem that they face is that after doing their end of the bid bargain, they said that 80 to 90% of the packaging ends up into waterways and into the ocean because these countries, a lot of these countries from the Asia Pacific region, don't have systems for proper collection and
Yeah.
segregation and also reprocessing, and also unfortunately don't have the education. The community is not educated enough to, or empowered enough to
Yeah.
do it. So this is what is a challenge. So yes, at a micro level you can do it. I'm saying at a
Yeah.
micro level. So imagine this, that you are selling a niche product,
Yeah.
and you create a buyback scheme or where once it is at the end of the life it can be brought back to you,
Yeah.
and you dismantle it, and that is perfectly possible. A lot of that already happens in the you know in the kabaddi wala business in many ways. But I'm talking about, if you want to design for circularity,
True.
the the design for circularity will have to be backed up with systems for circularity.
Yeah. I do agree with it. It's a very important that again, especially uh, systems are very important on these lines, and especially when we are looking at urban areas, because uh, somewhere on those lines, business models are much more easily feasible in urban areas just because of the sheer density of the people,
Correct.
which might not be possible right now in small towns or villages. So there is surely some cost point I do believe will make more sense to do it, or at least start doing it in urban
Mm.
areas. And so how do we? So we are looking at construction and demolition waste as one of those. Water recycling, water resource management as another. Your just usual domestic waste collection, apart from industrial. Let's keep industrial aside as of now.
Yeah.
Industrial might be easier to do it than domestic because domestic we generally mix up a lot of things if it has not been segregated. Any other specific things that we are missing out on when we are looking at it from urban context?
A lot of things could be done. I mean, I guess if I take a, in my view, circular economy should basically pervades every aspect of
Agree.
a society. It is not really only, it should never be associated only with solid waste,
Yeah.
which can be a real danger if people only associate circular economy with solid waste management. It is
Yeah.
not. It is actually a very wrong way of looking at it. Um, Imagine this, that improper storage of agricultural products, or grains,
Yeah.
improper transport of that, or if it leads to a lot of wastage, and you improve that situation, isn't that circular economy? It is. That is
True.
circular economy, because you are doing something which is basically avoiding wastage.
Yeah.
So one of the another classical definition of circular economy is that you design out waste.
Yeah.
Think about it. Like, you are actually doing things which currently is leading to waste generation.
Yeah.
So imagine that you realize that the fact that your improper storage of agricultural grain is costing wasting thousands and thousands of tons of grains, for example,
Yeah.
because you don't have dry conditions, or all those kind of things. And if you improve that, then it's circular economy.
Yeah.
So that's just an example which is outside so-called waste management, right?
Yeah.
Designing efficient transport systems, as I give an example from an urban context,
Yeah.
which allows you to minimize traffic congestion, allows you to maximize utilization of other modes of transport like bicycles and stuff like that. Isn't that circular economy? It is circular economy, because you are technically reducing your dependence or reducing the fossil fuel use.
Yeah.
If you're spending, say, hours and hours in a idle mode, at traffic intersections,
Yeah.
imagine collectively how much fuel is being wasted.
Agreed.
So I think it is about a thing. I come back to it. It's thinking, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
about how we generate more efficiencies in the system, which allow you to minimize waste and wastage. As I said, that's just two examples which are totally unrelated to solid waste.
Yeah.
Water is important because, for example, water in its purest form, I always say, we talk about water pollution or
Yeah.
wastewater. In my view, water pollution is basically a waste management issue, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
water, when it comes from the rain fall event, and is pure in its pristine form. So
True.
what happens to it afterward decides the pollution. So imagine that we have got this legacy of discharging sewage into water
Yeah.
bodies, unfortunately. Now, if you prevent that, and that basically means, or if you treat that wastewater, or if you prevent the water getting sewage and other industrial effluent getting into water bodies, you have got far better quality water, which is going to improve your, you know, the whole water management operation, because
Yeah.
you'll have better water, industries will benefit, community will benefit.
True.
So preventing preventing the pollution of water, or treating wastewater to a quality which can be used for a beneficial purpose,
Yeah.
isn't that circular economy? That is circular economy again, because it is not,
True.
you're getting, what you're doing is you're maximizing the value of that resource.
Yeah.
At the moment, the value is not there for you because you're polluted it.
True.
So circular economy has to be looked from all those angles.
Yeah. No, I agree with it, and I do believe that it's a very inherent thing in itself. I think it's apart from systemic change that we are looking for. I think as you rightly pointed out before, it's a philosophical change in way of life as well.
It is.
Apart from that, it gets very difficult. Could you? I think we do have a paucity of time, but last two questions on those lines would be: one is, what are the new kinds of product, service, technology coming up in the market on these lines?
Millions of them are coming in the market. There's no dearth of ingenuity and innovation in this space. Human beings by nature, and not just limited to India or Australia or any other part, are basically wanting to always improve the quality, efficiency, and they want to think outside the box. So many
Yeah.
things, and that's happening not just in technology space, in product space as well.
Yeah.
There's so many products coming out. I saw recently, for example, and as just an example of circular economy, where I saw, because we send billions of toothpaste into landfill, right?
Yeah.
And so this actually is like a tablet size toothpaste. So it's not even toothpaste, like a tablet, which
Yeah.
you put in the mouth, and then it froths, and you can actually brush your teeth using that. And it
Okay.
comes in a glass jar. And then whenever you run out of those tablets which are used for brushing, you just order more. They come in a recycled packaging,
Okay.
cardboard packaging. So suddenly, by designing a product,
Yeah.
a consumable product, uh, if you imagine that, if that is the only way so-called toothpaste was delivered from a long, we would have prevented billions of this toothpaste going to landfill.
True.
So that's just an example of a circular economy approach, that,
Yeah.
you know simple but effective.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, I think that's the thing. Like every space we might go, we just discuss so many different fields as well over here. I'm sure there will be so
Oh,
many
look,
more examples.
so many examples. I mean, it's not like, and it is happening in every field and every tech product. I mean, um, I must, I've seen there's recently there are, I saw a couple of printers coming in the market, and they are quite commercially available now, where they are actually not wanting cartridges. They actually want to use tanks, like ink tanks, and you
Yeah.
just top up the ink as you finish. So uh, already they are in the market now, and good example of circular economy again in terms of design, because you are minimizing your cartridges. You just keep on topping up the ink.
True.
Good example of circular economy design, right?
Yeah.
So this, I mean, you would find everywhere. I mean, I'm not just by any means suggesting, and I'm pretty confident India would have so many of these wonderful things coming up. And uh, you know the innovation and the enterprising nature of the Indian young generation, if they are allowed, they are backed up by good systems, and
Yeah.
I think India could lead the world in this space. We already
Absolutely.
do have leading the world in the IT revolution.
Yeah.
Why not lead in circular economy? What a wonderful thing it would be. And you know what? India should have a natural advantage, knowing the Indian lifestyle and what was there
Yeah.
in our civilization, from ancient, civilization we have, from time of Upanishads and Vedas. Um, Circular economy was essential part of our psyche.
Yeah.
Our ancestors, they worshipped nature, they respected nature, they respected the role. They realized that nature is not something we conquer or we tame, because we are part of it. So there was a
Yeah.
genuine respect, and that was reflected in the way we led our lives. Yeah, only for 30 years ago, I remember 40 years ago in my grandparents' time, there was no use of organic fertilizers. We had they had buffaloes, cows, and the manure was used for farming,
Yeah.
and agriculture. And guess what? Uh, that was and the quality of the produce was exceptionally good. But that was uh, then came the era of artificial, fertilizers. And guess what? The technique of using manure was seen
Yeah.
as old and antiquated. Guess
True.
what's happened in 40 years now? We have gone through that whole process of using artificial fertilizers, pumping our soil with that, and in the whole process now really degrading our soil.
Yeah.
And now we want to go back to compost and manure again. So aren't we going back to the some of that wonderful
Yeah.
wisdom that
Yeah.
Indian civilization had? So again, coming back to circular economy, in my view, we should not, India, if they want to be successful, we should not look at circular economy from a European prism.
True. I agree with that.
We should look it from an Indian prism.
Yeah.
We should, because why should we not? I mean, and I've lived outside India for 30 years, and having had a chance to travel around the world and look at various uh, approaches and to circular economy, what works, what doesn't work. um, yes, certain things have to be there, like I mentioned polluter pays principle, because people cannot just throw use and throw things. They have to,
Yeah,
there has to be value put on it. But in terms of then approaching it from a uh, philosophical perspective, India would have a natural advantage. um, Sustainability was an integral part of our psyche.
yeah,
And but I can see that if we don't grab this opportunity, it's going to we are going to miss out on this. We are going to miss the bus, put it this way.
I do agree. It's very important, and so that I want to continue this point to our next question as well about how what kind of skill sets would be required would be, I think, a very general question for this, because this is such a huge field that you pick any of this and there will be five different things required. So I'll try to make it more precise on the line that administratively, if we are looking at it, what kind of skill sets do we require to develop these systemic changes?
Okay, good question, Puneet, because I can give a few different answers because this is interesting. Yes, um, let me first, before I talk about from administrative perspective, I'll talk about at an individual level. Okay,
Sure.
at an entrepreneur level, at a someone who is an entrepreneur, what kind of, and I would say simple, an inquisitive mind, a lateral thinker, a preventative and a comprehensive approach. So
Yeah.
someone who is always prepared to think outside the box and say,
Yeah.
okay, what is the way I can make this better? What is an option here? What can be done? There's a problem. And in India, for example, I've read a wonderful success story of this young entrepreneurs who used the flowers in
Yeah.
used in a temple to produce lovely colors and stuff, a few other byproducts from it, right?
Yeah.
So what was it? It was someone looking at it as a, and suddenly he saw a solution in that problem.
Yeah.
And so that cannot be taught. And I think intrinsically, I believe that India has a natural advantage. They should be able to think laterally. We used to talk about this Indian concept of jugaad, but this is more than a jugaad. This is more about, yeah, few. So that would be at an individual level, right? And I think that could be, that thought process could be applied to any problem
Yeah.
at a administrative level, say for NIUA or government organizations.
Yeah.
I think they have to be prepared to be a bit more bold about this and bit more vocal about this. They
Yeah.
need to perhaps bring it to the attention of their political masters
Yeah.
and say, look, sir, your excellency, we are missing out on this opportunity. This is something that is going to, yes, there might be some short term resistance and short term pain,
Yeah.
but you know what? This is an essential step that we need to take, and an urgent step we need to take. And then they would be getting the mandate, hopefully, from their political masters, say, okay, go ahead, start to put in some systems, start to put in some policies, start to putting some sort of regulatory and commercial measures
Yeah.
to enable this.
Okay.
That would be my request to the administrators, that look at this as a wonderful opportunity. Look at environment as not a cost imposition. Look at sustainability as not a cost imposition, but an essential part, an essential ingredient for a prosperous future. And you see, I mean, you see already now that we didn't put price on the nature, and now we are paying a price for it.
I do agree with it. I absolutely agree, and I think this should be the final crux of our this episode as well. That we are now made to pay for what we are doing. It's
Exactly
not
right.
simple at all.
And we are paying through our noses, aren't we?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's the high time that we start doing things in a way which this is. I think this is we have gone beyond a point that we are looking at efficiency. We are looking at
Correct.
things which are structurally just makes more sense
Yes.
uh,
That's
than what we have been
so
doing till now. And I do hope so that you and I both, and a lot of other people who are in this journey together, can make a difference on these lines, and hopefully be able to bring this to India as well, on the lines that you have been able to
Yeah,
do it in Adelaide and South
look,
Australia.
I really hope so, Puneet. And I think as another quality I should say, and I'm talked about an inquisitive mind and a lateral thinker. I think a circular economist has to be an eternal optimist. Um, he or she has to
Yeah,
always be an optimist, because if we don't do it, then nobody else is going to do it.
true, true. I agree with it. Thank you so much, Mr. Hemant, for those words. I feel it that was the high point for us to close this episode as well.
Thank you so much,
And
Puneet. I appreciate. Yeah, love the chat and conversation. It's a pleasure to talk to you again, and always the good work that you and NIUA and other people are doing in India. I wish you every success. Anything that I'm happy to that I can contribute in your sort of work. I'm always more than willing to do so.
thank you, absolutely. And we'll let you know wherever we can collaborate together.
So
And
look forward to.
thank you.
You have been listening to Understanding the Future podcast. To know more about Climate Center for Cities, check out our website www.niua.org/c-q. The show is conceptualized, produced, and edited by Punit Gandhi, Senior Associate at CQ. You can now subscribe to our podcast on your favorite channel, which can be accessed through the credits. Also, don't forget to follow us on our social media for more updates. Do share your reviews with us and help us spread the podcast to your friends and colleagues. Do write to us if you would be interested in learning about any specific topics. Thank you and stay tuned for our next episode.